All right, welcome back, everybody, to episode 14. It's Tuesday, January 27th, and yeah, it's almost been a full month of doing the show, and I just had my first break from doing it because I had to go play some shows in New York, and so I feel like I need to relearn what I'm doing here. I feel like I kind of fell off the wagon and have to readjust to doing this. It feels kind of like just starting the show just now felt like jumping into cold water or something, where it's like you just have to force yourself to do it and then deal with it. Not that I don't want to do it, but it's just like similarly, like I want to jump in the cold water because it feels good once I do it. In this case, it's more just like, I don't know, not knowing where I need to jump in to learn how to swim. I don't know. So, yeah, I think I'm also just kind of going a little crazy because for the past 5 years, when January came around, I would, more or less January or February, I would go on tour playing music to Florida. And so for 4 out of the past 5 years, I've had my winter broken up. I live in New England, so the winters are kind of intense, and I think I I don't know. I forgot what they're really like. So now I'm actually dealing with, especially the past 3 years. The past 3 years, every year I would go do a really similar tour. So now I'm just stuck, and we just had a huge blizzard, and I'm just losing my mind because it's freezing outside, and that just really limits what you're able to do with other people or even do with yourself. It just feels like we're all kind of stuck. And I'm also thinking a lot about how it feels like no one has any leisure time in my kind of wide circle of friends. Ultimately and we're not all super close to each other, but we're all within driving distance of each other, most of these people. And it's just hard to it just feels like we can't get our lives to collaborate with each other at all because everyone is stuck to their work requirements and is saving no money and has subsequently just has very little leisure time. And yeah, so that combined with the winter, I feel like I'm just kind of going a little crazy. I think and that's going to relate to a lot of what I'm talking about today. The last stream I wrote some notes for the last stream and I only got through half of it. So I'm just going to continue on that track and talk about things that are more or less the opposite of brain rot. Instead of atrophying your mental abilities and thus your vital abilities, you can cultivate strength in them and exercise them and explore new possibilities. And then also, as you're growing as a person, you increase your awareness of those things within your mind or that are within your grasp. The past couple of days, I spent the blizzard at my mom's house, and I started reading this book, Individuation, by Joseph Goldbrunner, who was a German Catholic priest. And it's basically, I think 70 or 80% of the book is pretty much just a survey of Jung's theory or his psychological philosophy. And then at the end, he reflects on it from his own perspective as a Catholic priest. That is what it seems like it is so far. I actually, on the last episode, I read a little bit from the very end of this book because I read the last 5 or 10 pages of this before I started it properly. And I don't know. This individuation process is really nice to read about because it is something that I think maybe most of us already have some framework for thinking about in our heads. I certainly have at this point in my life, having overcome like what one could call spiritual sickness. Like he differentiates in here between like serious mental illness and like dis-ease of the soul. Like, and I don't know, it's super it's kind of surface level. Like he doesn't go into detail a whole lot. He's just trying to give you like a lay of the land with Yin Yang. And so he doesn't offer definitions of those things. He kind of is, it's like a vibes based approach to getting a sense of what Jung is about, but I appreciate it. And yeah, I found that kind of a useful concept thinking about things that are like diseases of the soul, such as depression or just extreme anxieties or whatever they may be. And then I think there's other things that, I mean, I don't know a ton about where these things come from or how they develop, but then I consider like severe cases of schizophrenia or something where you're actually psychotically broken from reality. And there's, yeah, and anyway, sorry, I'm kind of losing my point. I have to get back in the run of doing this, but and it's not even just that I took a break. I think there is a significant, unfortunately, like I think the winter is weighing on me significantly, where I feel like not depressed, but just foggier, and it like it is difficult to live. And it's not, obviously this wouldn't be the case in every societal circumstance within a winter season, but in our particular societal circumstance that seems to want to empty us out of all vital energies and dry us up to begin with in all seasons, this is a particularly difficult season. And also, the seasons recur, but history moves on, and history keeps pressing on, and it doesn't seem, I mean, I'm a little bit of an optimist in certain ways, but the way things are going, it does not, it's not the most heartening thing to see in the world. Like I feel like increasingly, especially these issues that I try to focus on the show, things related to media and technology and how they affect the psyche. They affect, psyche is Greek for soul, like how they affect humanity, and then how that affects the culture that breeds new people and enculturates them into the turning of the gears of the society. Like it's like it, looking through that lens, things don't seem to be getting better. I feel like people are the brains continue to atrophy, and the ability of people to take the right path, so to speak, gets, the path gets steeper and steeper. As this is the world that we live in, it gets harder and harder to do the right thing, so to speak. It for yourself or for humanity or for anything, everything starts dragging you down. It gets more and more slippery. It gets more and more steep. It takes a lot more energy just to overcome that energy that's trying to pull you down. So, yeah, so I'll continue kind of with how I left off on Thursday. Was that Thursday or no? I guess that was Tuesday last week. So yeah, it's been a long break. And I just want to talk about ways to try to overcome that inertia that can just seep into us and hold us back and beget worse and worse versions of ourselves, worse for our own sake. So, and one thing that I just cannot get off of my mind currently is spending time in environments that are natural, like more or less, not like when you live in a city and you go through your day, you spend like most of the sensory information that you're getting from the world through all of your senses is through things that have been molded by man. So it's the city, or maybe you see nature photography in a book or on your phone, but that is mediated. It was produced by human labor. And so it's easy actually to go extremely long periods of time without being, never mind being submerged. You can go a long time without even witnessing things that are not stamped by the acts of men. So I think there's certainly a value to separating yourself from that and, say, going into nature and spending enough time there that you actually experience something else, experience something that is not just coming from man. And I think that's important as our culture devolves and becomes more neurotic and insane, because all of that stuff comes into you. This is something I've been thinking about also as a New England thing, because New England, having driven around the country a lot, like I think America's a pretty culturally, we create neurotic people everywhere. However, New England just seems to be on another level, or at least the Northeast, like say like DC to Boston, and including like Albany and New York and Philadelphia and probably Pittsburgh, but I don't know. But just that like one real corridor from like DC to Boston. When I go on a road trip and I am far away from that, I can, or as I exit that, I can feel like a type of release, a type of spatial release. I mean, you can even think of it just in terms of how densely developed this part of the country is and how small these states are. You can drive through so many states in a day, whereas if you are in Montana or Wyoming, it takes a very long time to go just from one side of your state to the other side of your state. Like, we have less land. It feels like that maybe affects how we experience time and how we experience space between each other, because everyone's kind of right on top of each other, and there's no breathing room. So I notice that whenever I go drive across the country. I notice it when I exit that sphere, and I notice it when I come back, and it doesn't feel great to come back. I grew up in this region, and I feel pretty attached to living here because I like it a lot, and this is where my roots are. But like, culturally, the fact that is what it's like here is pretty difficult to square with, especially as time goes on. There's less and less space. More and more just gets developed and filled up with shit buildings and useless businesses. And you just watch it all get destroyed. Like my, men in my family in the 60s and 70s, they used to hunt and trap in this area in the whole Northeast, but also just sort of like down in the southern, because you think of Maine still as pretty rural, but even in these southern areas, and listening to them talk, you hear so much about all these animals that you never see around here anymore, like mink or pheasant, and they were like nuisance tier population levels. And it's just, that's one generation. That's from my father's generation to me, and that is all dried up, and I just watch it dry up more and more every day. I watch life just become increasingly extinct every day. Human life within people, and also animal life and plant life in the world. And I think it feels worse in the Northeast because of the space thing. Like, I think, at least if I was maybe in the middle of the desert or a prairie or something, the amount of land before me that is not being tainted would maybe allow me to relax. But there's something inexorable. There's something that feels inexorable about the destruction of everything being here in the Northeast. And also, I mean, you think about like DC to Boston, that's the elite center of the entire globe. You've got the US government in DC, you've got the financial capital of the world in New York City, you've got all the Ivy Leagues from Boston down to DC, all producing people who function or work as functionaries within that system. So yeah. Anyway, kind of kind of bad vibes. If you're on the subway in New York and you're seeing all the move to Vermont stuff, just don't move to Vermont. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so I guess that's where I'll start, is just like, I would like to, personally, what I'm thinking about right now is I would really like to spend like a whole week just detached from the normal way that I'm living my life, like in like just off the grid in a cabin or something like that, just to let my thoughts decalibrate themselves from what they have calibrated themselves to. So, and something that made me think about that was I went down to New York, and so I have a flip phone and I kept my old smartphone and I can use it on Wi-Fi and I can use it as a GPS. And when I went to New York for more than 48 hours, I didn't have Wi-Fi there, so it was as if I didn't have a smartphone at all. And I didn't go on a laptop or anything like that. And I noticed just in that short amount of time, really I noticed just after a day, and really you notice immediately, because you notice when you first want to check your phone and can't, that is when you start noticing how much it really changes you, how much it changes the way that you think, how much it changes what you feel like your options are for your life, how optimistic or pessimistic you feel about just doing things in your life or the coming day or the coming 20 minutes. And so by not having access to that, I just felt so good. And I know I talk about that on the show all the time, but it really is, I don't know, it's something that while I'm using it, I will never really understand what I'm missing or what things could be like if I were not using it. So even though I talk so much about it, a lot can be, it's because I've experienced this before, but as soon as I get back in the rhythm of going on the internet all the time or being on the phone, it can override that, and it sneaks in really insidiously, because I'll feel like I have a handle on it and like a handle on my research and what I'm trying to talk about, but there's just secret stuff going on underneath the surface with that relationship to that phone that is sabotaging the work that I'm trying to do. And so when you actually starve that part of yourself and you start to feel it like squirm, and you start to notice like in its weakness what it was, you notice, because it's, sorry, I don't want to be confusing with my wording. You notice now that it's weak what it was doing when it was stronger, when you were feeding it all the time, and how much it was actually holding you back from your potential as a person, like your whole ass potential as a person. It affects everything. So anyway, and that was also like, I was in New York City, and that is such a highly stimulating environment, and yet I felt more able to be fine and not be overly pessimistic and not be affected by all those other things. I think because at least the phone was cut off. I think if I had the phone, I would just feel more miserable after that experience, because I don't love being in New York most of the time. It's just too much. It's like too much, and for what? So anyway, so yeah, that kind of like just 2-day break from my phone, and then thinking about nature. A friend of mine sent me a poem by Wordsworth that I'll read at some point. Maybe I'll just read it now because it relates to what I'm talking about. It's lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the, actually, I don't know how you pronounce this river. It's either Y or Wye, W-Y-E. I guess I'll say Y, but I feel like it's actually Wye because of a rhyme that happens in here. Anyway, during a tour, July 13th, 1798. And so he talks about a walk in the wilderness, and the wilderness 200 years ago is something we don't have access to at all anymore. So it's funny because he talks about how that experience of spending that time in that environment has stuck with him over all these years. And it's like, now we have this once abstracted version of that to appreciate, where it's like, well, we actually can't even go outside like you could in the 60s. So I have to read this poem and have that poem mixed with my more minor experiences of nature that I'm permitted to have in this region of the world. And I get to combine those and have this abstracted version of the good thing living in my mind, whereas he just is thinking about his memories. I don't know. And I don't want to sound unappreciative, because I think you can, like, any one person can, like, commune with a plant or the ocean or the, you know, like the tide or the sunset. Like, I don't feel like I'm cut off from beauty in that way, but there is a type of immersion in the natural cycles of the world that I am cut off from. I guess I could go on a camping trip up in Maine or something, but it's not that it has become commodified. I can only go do it as like a vacation. I can't do it because people live up there and someone is going to, and we have this community of natural, or this culture that supports appreciation of natural beauty, like in the past. Or, I mean, the Appalachian Trail mimics this. It's like one of those last things where it's like, you can go hike the Appalachian Trail and people are going to help you out along the way. But once upon a time, you could at least venture out into the world and enter upon new towns and, like, make your way and go through the wilderness and make your way and find places to sleep and not worry about, I don't know. I feel like there's so much to worry about now, just ambiguity wise, of trespassing now, especially in the New England territory, where it's like in Massachusetts or something, it's so vague what may permit. I forget what this law is called. I think in England it's called, like, I don't know, but there's sort of like wanderers' rights, and I don't know. We don't actually have even if that might be in the law books, we don't have a culture of wanderers' rights. So anyway, maybe I'll just read this just to degunk my head. It's probably like a 5 or 7 minute poem, so I'll just do it. And yeah, he's just reflecting on, I forget, I didn't read it before the stream, but he's reflecting on times where he used to come to this area near Tintern Abbey, which I think Tintern Abbey was like a monastic building from, I don't know, like the 1300s. So long ruined, but it's still a site you can go and see. And it was a site people would visit at this time, around 1800. So yeah, I guess just to degunk my head, I will read this. And this plays into the theme of the past couple streams, because sometimes if you do just feel like you can't think straight, one of the best things you can do is just read something. Just let some other words enter into your mind. And I think it's good to have a sense of things that, or set things aside that will get you out of that feeling specifically, as opposed to reading things totally at random. But I I mean, I certainly support reading things totally at random. That's how you find a lot of the good stuff. So anyway, I'll read this Wordsworth poem, Tintern Abbey. It's not the full title, but if you want to look it up, you can look it up like that. All right. 5 years have passed, 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters. And again I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs with a soft inland murmur. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs that on a wild, secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. The day is come when I again repose here under this dark sycamore and view these plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts, which at this season, with their unripe fruits, are clad in one green hue and lose themselves mid groves and copses. Once again I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of sportive wood run wild, these pastoral farms, green to the very door, and wreaths of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees, with some uncertain notice, as might seem of vagrant dwellers in the houseless woods, or of some hermit's cave, where by his fire the hermit sits alone. I'm just gonna underline a few things as we go. Or maybe I'll take it verse by verse here, just to talk about it. I don't know. But when he says 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters, that's I forgot that is really how I feel right now. Is like I'm in the midst of a truly long winter. And when he says, once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs that on a wild, secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion, that reminds me of like I'm admiring that seclusion that he has. He's thinking about an even deeper one, and I'm just admiring his because I have such a minimal opportunity to even experience that type of natural seclusion. All right. These beauteous forms, through a long absence, have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye, but oft in lonely rooms and mid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them, in hours of weariness, sensations sweet, felt in the blood and felt along the heart, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration, feelings too of unremembered pleasure, such perhaps as have no slight or trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. Nor less, I trust, to them I may have owed another gift, of aspect more sublime, that blessed mood in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. That serene and blessed mood, in which the affections gently lead us on, until the breath of this corporeal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony, and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. I don't even feel like I can comment on that because it puts it so much better than I ever would be able to. But just to speak on something at the start, he says, these beauteous forms, through a long absence, have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. He hasn't forgotten them. But oft in lonely rooms and mid the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them, in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in the blood and felt along the heart. Like he remembers that. That's how I'm describing this poem as an analogy to myself in the world now, where it's like, well, I can memorize this poem, and then when I'm in the lonely rooms amid the din of towns and cities, I can remember the things that this poem evokes for me, and it can remind me of all those things in my life of unremembered pleasure, such perhaps as have no slight or trivial influence on that best portion of a good man's life, but his little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love, things like that. And then he also brings it around to, nor less I trust to them I may have owed another gift, of aspect more sublime, that blessed mood in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. That is just so good. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. That is such a good verse of this poem. Anyway, if this be but a vain belief yet, oh, how oft in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how oft in spirit have I turned to thee, O sylvan way. Though wanderer through the woods, how often has my spirit turned to thee. And now, with gleams of half-extinguished thought, actually, I will comment on that as well, because I just want to bring an analogy of brain rot back to the past and connect it to depression and things like that, where it's like, people haven't, many things are novel about our circumstances, and many things are actually not novel. They are just, it's not like they've been transmuted, it's that they've been exaggerated and highly manipulated and accelerated. So the things that like doom scrolling play into in our lives, like that listless languishing, that is something people have struggled with for centuries, millennia. I don't know how long, but there's so much you can see about it written in the past. And this stream is about like, don't doom scroll or rot your brain with these technologies that are addictive and are manipulating you, but do these other things, get out of that. And one of the things I'm suggesting is read or write or spend time in nature, or do dredge the mind for whatever is in your mind and remind yourself of your memories or your potentials within the psychical sphere. And so he is saying, like, I am like in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how oft in spirit have I turned to thee. He turns back to these memories of walking there. And that is like, he could indulge total negativity in those moments. You could allow yourself to be passively affected by, or even actively hurting yourself, but be passively affected by those negative thoughts. And that will affect your mind in turn. It will continue to mold who you are over time negatively. But instead he's doing the, this is so stupid to phrase it this way, but he's doing the anti-brain rot thing. He's remembering something that inspires so much more in his mind, opens his mind up so much more to so much more of the world. Like it lightens the load of the unintelligible world. And it, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. It brings back the life of things. All right, we'll move on here. And now, with gleams of half-extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again. While here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with the pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food for future years. And so I dare to hope, though changed, no doubt, from what I was when I first came among these hills, when like a roe I bounded over the mountains, by the sides of the deep rivers and the lonely streams, wherever nature led, more like a man flying from something he dreads than one who sought the thing he loved. For nature, then, the coarser pleasures of my boyish days and their glad animal movements all gone by, to me was all in all. I cannot paint what then I was. The sounding cataract haunted me like a passion, the tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and gloomy wood. Their colors and their forms were then to me an appetite, a feeling and a love, that had no need of a remoter charm, by thought supplied, nor any interest unborrowed from the eye. That time is past, and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures. Not for this faint eye, nor mourn, nor murmur. Other gifts have followed. For such loss I would believe abundant recompense. For I have learned to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity, nor harsh, nor grating, though of ample power to chasten and subdue. And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Therefore am I still a lover of the meadows and the woods and mountains, and of all that we behold from this green earth, of all the mighty world of eye and ear, both what they half create and what perceive, well pleased to recognize in nature and the language of the sense, the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart, and soul of all my moral being. That's another one where I kind of feel like it, I don't know how much I can add, but there is like, he talks about, because he's back at this place. He's writing this from the perspective of being back there after all these years where being there in his youth, it has stuck with him. And so, like, and now, with gleams of half-extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again, while here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food for future years. That's I think when I say I really would like to go on some sort of retreat, I'm like desperate for that. I feel like I am lacking life and food for the current day, period, never mind years. And he talks later on about, like, with his mature sense of what nature is and how much it speaks to the human existential condition and how much more he gets out of it than he did when he was young. I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean, and the living air, and the blue sky, and, in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Like, what I'm desperate for is to go spend time in nature so that it can reflect and so that it can be reflected in me and I can be reflected in it, so I can learn more about myself. Because, for example, I remember taking a walk in Western Massachusetts through the woods with some of my friends, and on the way back we stopped on a bridge, and I was kind of in my concentration exercise phase where I was like trying to take periods of time to do nothing but concentrate, and I might have set a timer or something where it was like, let's just look at this stream for like 10 minutes. And that's like, we don't do anything else for 10 minutes. And I didn't have any goals for that. I didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to exercise, improve my attention, strengthen my attention and concentration. But really, I got something much more significant out of it where, and I'm not saying this is deeply profound, but it had, I think the profound element of this is the source from which it came, because the concept may not be too significant, but it is, maybe it is. I mean, it's hard to, I don't know, when you're talking about religious and existential things, sometimes it just seems passé, sometimes. But I was surprised by what I found myself thinking about by the end of the 10 minutes, because we're just on this little bridge, and it's like, it's not a large stream. If you really had to, you could go across it. I think it was wintertime or cold autumn. And so we're just watching it, and it's coming down. It's very shallow, and so you can see the paths that the water is taking as the rocks underneath it are dictating. And really, they're more like pebbles. There's some large rocks, but it's mostly pebbles just kind of like creating turbulence in the water. And so I'm watching the water, and if you haven't taken 5 or 10 minutes, like with a timer, to pay attention to one thing, especially one natural thing, I recommend that you do it, because it is longer. It might just be longer than you think it is, and you will be surprised by what you discover from it. So I found, one second. So I'm watching the turbulence of the water, and most of it's just flowing down under the bridge. But a lot of it, especially near the edges, gets stuck in, I don't know the word for this, but just stuck in these little turbulent zones where it just perpetually is moving. And you can see, I mean, you can't discern exactly what water is coming in and coming out, but some seems to stay there for quite a long time. And I was thinking about how really that water need never leave until there is a drastic disturbance in that stream. Like, in theory, a molecule of that water could really be stuck in there forever, and or it could get stuck and eventually it can come out, because there's, I don't know, I don't think there's anything probabilistically absurd about that. I think that's just the nature of the chaotic nature of molecules in a river. And I started to think of that as, say, like samsara I thought of the whole stream as like the Buddhist concept of samsara, or the return of, reincarnation, and eventually attaining enlightenment would be making it to the ocean. You actually make it out of the stream. But along this way, many molecules of this water get stuck in all these turbulent zones, and they may be there for years. They may be there for an hour. But that is just ultimately this journey down that stream. So when I stopped to look at the river, I was not expecting to think about that at all, but that's just what the river tells to me. So he's saying here, like he now just sees, like, to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity, nor harsh, nor grating, though of ample power to chasten and subdue. Like, he just sees much more in nature now. Yeah. All right. Next verse here. This is the last one. Okay, more tea. My throat just is I don't know, maybe it adjusted to not needing to talk so much. So, nor perchance, if I were not thus taught, should I the more suffer my genial spirits to decay. For thou art with me here upon the banks of this fair river, thou my dearest friend, my dear, dear friend, and in thy voice I catch the language of my former heart, and read the former pleasures in the shooting lights of thy wild eyes. Oh, yet a little while may I behold in thee what I was once, my dear, dear sister, and this prayer I make, knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. 'Tis her privilege, through all the years of this our life, to lead from joy to joy, for she can so inform the mind that is within us, so impress with quietness and beauty, and so feed with lofty thoughts, that neither evil tongues, rash judgments, nor the sneers of selfish men, nor greetings where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life shall ever prevail against us, or disturb our cheerful faith, that all which we behold is full of blessings. Therefore, let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk, and let the misty mountain winds be free to blow against thee. And in after years, when these wild ecstasies shall be matured into a sober pleasure, when thy mind shall be a mansion for all lovely forms, thy memory be as a dwelling place for all the sweet sounds and harmonies. Oh, then if solitude or fear or pain or grief should be thy portion, with what healing thoughts of tender joy wilt thou remember me? And these my exhortations. Nor perchance if I should be where I no more can hear thy voice, nor catch from thy wild eyes these gleams of past existence, wilt thou then forget that on the banks of this delightful stream we stood together, and that I, so long a worshipper of nature, hither came unwearied in that service? Rather say with warmer love, Oh, with far deeper zeal of holier love. Nor wilt thou then forget that after many wanderings, many years of absence, these steep woods and lofty cliffs, and this green pastoral landscape were to me more dear both for themselves and for thy sake. So that is lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the Wye, during a tour July 13th, 1798 by William Wordsworth. Thanks to my friend for recommending this to me in like October, but I only read it like a few days ago. Yeah. Speaking of which, if you've been trying to get a hold of me, I will get back to you eventually. But can't promise when. And anyway, yeah, that's that's like what I think that's what I'm needing. I'll change the title of this stream because I don't think I'm going to really go through the notes on the anti-brain rot stuff. We'll just talk about nature for a minute. And yeah, so that section here, through all the years of this our life to lead from joy to joy, for she, nature, can so inform the mind that is within us, so impress with quietness and beauty, and so feed with lofty thoughts, that neither evil tongues, rash judgments, nor the sneers of selfish men, nor greetings where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life, shall ever prevail against us, or disturb our cheerful faith, that all which we behold is full of blessings. And a lot of those negative things are what this show is about, and the show is about overcoming those negative things too. I feel like those lines that I just read is in line with what I'm trying to do here, because we're in a world of evil tongues, rash judgments, sneers of selfish men, greetings where no kindness is, the dreary intercourse of daily life. It's worse than dreary at this point. So, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that your apartment's boiler went out. I hope that is repaired swiftly. But New York landlords, so yeah, I hope it's fixed quick. Is your landlord good with that stuff? Anyway, yeah, so that's that. There's one other note that I thought of while I was reading that, or when I was going on the, not really a tangent, but when I was talking about my experience of looking at the stream, I was also thinking about a time when I had first started reading that concentration and meditation book by Christmas Humphreys that I've referred to on here, where I was doing those concentration exercises, and one of them was like I'd set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes or something, and I would just look at whatever it was. Could be a rock, a clover, a piece of bark, whatever it was. I tried to do it mostly with natural things, but not exclusively. So anyway, but there was one really significant moment where I was looking at a piece of clover in a field, and I picked the piece of clover, and I don't mean the flower of clover, just like a three leaf clover, green, just leaves really. And yeah, I had sort of a significant experience with it because I was raised vegetarian, and I never ate meat until pretty late in my life, like a few years ago, and like never at all. So, and I was thinking about it at this time. I was weighing in my head if I was going to, and so what I did was I was just staring at this clover as a concentration exercise, and I did it for a while. Maybe I set timers for like 5 or 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. And over time, eventually I just like crumpled it up, and I just like crumpled it as much as humanly possible, basically, where I just like really broke it all down. And it was weird because I could then see these different elements of it. And I don't know if this was before or after I ate meat for the first time. I don't know if I was reflecting on it because of what follows. So I watched it just kind of come apart and separate into these different fibers. Or was like, it seemed like there were just like, I don't know, just different qualities of molecular fibers that separated out, like just some like white kind of proteiny looking things, and then there was just the like dark leaf part that was all like bleeding into itself. All the chlorophyll was like broken, and that was interesting to me because it that made it a lot easier to eat meat from there on out, because something weird about eating animals is that you really are faced with the complexity of the organism. And I think in my vegetarianism earlier in my life, and in our society, with our society's relationship to food in general, food is kind of, everything's expected to be the same every time. It's like the orange should always taste like an orange, or like there's nothing unique about these things. They are like categorical, and they just come down to you from the category box. And so, but then with meat, it just seems a little different, because there's clearly, well, because we are also an animal. So you think about all the parts of that organism that you're eating, or you see like the sinewy parts and the fibers, and or like parts of the bone. So there's like a complexity there that I thought wasn't really there for things like leaves or vegetables. But through really paying attention to just these leaves that I was looking at for a while and then crumpled up and took apart, I realized that all that complexity really is there for the plants as well. It's not like plants are simple and meat is sort of complex or grotesque. It's like plants are also grotesque. They also have these, I don't know, I mean, they're also living and moving nutrients within them. And anyway, that's just to make another point with respect to what he's saying about having a mature relationship to witnessing nature and seeing what nature can speak to you. Because that was not an insignificant experience for me. That made it a lot less gross to me to eat meat, because I realized something about the food I was consuming anyway. And anyways, so I don't know. I mean, I honestly might just call it there, because I just need to get back in the rhythm, and I need a vacation. I need to go on a retreat in the woods. I need to go to my cabin. And I say that hypothetically. I don't have a cabin. A friend has a cabin, so maybe this will become reality. I would like that. But yeah, we'll get to the brain rot stuff maybe tomorrow. I'm busy till 9 on Wednesdays. That's why I don't do the show, but I might hop on and do another one, because it's been a while and there's still a lot to say. So yeah, I guess I'll leave us with one more poem. Let me see here. Yeah, I'll read this one. This is Robinson Jeffers. It's kind of it's a little random, but he writes a lot about nature. So this is called Vulture. I had walked since dawn, and so he's from California, if you need to imagine a landscape here. I had walked since dawn and lay down to rest on a bare hillside above the ocean. I saw through half-shut eyelids a vulture wheeling high up in heaven, and presently it passed again, but lower and nearer, its orbit narrowing. I understood then that I was under inspection. I lay death still, and heard the flight feathers whistle above me and make their circle and come nearer. I could hear the naked red head. I could see the naked red head between the great wings, beak downward staring. I said, "My dear bird, we are wasting time here. These old bones will still work. They are not for you. But how beautiful he'd looked, gliding down on those great sails. How beautiful he looked, veering away in the sea light over the precipice. I tell you solemnly that I was sorry to have disappointed him. To be eaten by that beak and become part of him, to share those wings and those eyes, what a sublime end of one's body. What an enskyment. What a life after death. And yeah, those are... I just need to have some experiences at the level of natural time, because and it's funny when you do go hiking or something and you see so many people treating it as if it really is like entertainment or just I don't know. Some of the conversations you'll hear people having at the top of a mountain are just like insane. They'll just be talking about office drama. And so what I appreciate about that poem is that, he sees this vulture and he specifically tries to engage with the vulture. He just plays dead so that he can see the vulture more clearly. And that requires a type of, you can't dismiss natural time. You can't dismiss the nature that's unfolding around you and do that. You have to engage with it on its own terms. Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you all for tuning in, and I'll be, maybe tomorrow, but Thursday, Friday, the usual, we're back at it, and Friday will be like a month anniversary of doing this. It's been going good, I think, and like and subscribe. I appreciate it. If you do want to get a hold of me, leave a comment, and thanks for tuning in. I'll probably see you tomorrow.